I'd like to introduce somebody who played a big role for us in the past, and that's Dr. James Heck. Jim is familiar to many of you, partly because he was general manager of WUSF for 18 years. And if you know Jim, you also know Joanne Heck. They're inseparable. They're a real team. They have been inseparable since high school when they met in the drama club. Jim is the kind of person who sees a need and wants to help fill the need. Public broadcasting was still a fledgling industry in the 1980s, and that was a peak time for stations being launched and being developed and bringing new things to what we did on the radio and on TV. And at USF, Jim saw the need for strong, unifying leadership for WUSF, and he just stepped right into that role, not only as a champion for public radio and public TV, but as somebody who truly loved the educational mission of public broadcasting. Even when he retired as general manager, he stayed with USF to fill another need, and that was to help build the major gift program for the station. Jim developed outstanding relationships with so many of our viewers and listeners, and I know so many of you in this room remember him from his time at the helm of WUSF. Since Jim has retired, he's found ways to keep giving to WUSF, and he and Joanne created the Heck Endowment. And the Heck Endowment enables WUSF to hire student employees. Jim and Joe are cornerstone members. They're sustaining members, and now they've given WUSF another gift, and I'll let Jim explain that. Please welcome our former general manager and our friend, Jim Heck.
Did you know I hired her? She was just a young thing in West Virginia, and we were looking for a station manager at the station we were operating down in Fort Myers at the time. And so we hired her to go down there. And then I needed a station manager for WUSF, and I called Joanne and I said, why don't you come up here and be the station manager for WUSF? She said, I'm not sure I want to do that. She was a little reluctant. Now you need to understand she was very young at the time. And so she was just kind of feeling her oats, kind of getting her legs under her. And so she came up on a temporary basis. She'd come up here for a couple of days and then she'd go back to Fort Myers for her station down there. And she did that for about 6 months. And finally I said, don't you want to come up here? And she said, yes, I think I do. So she came to be the station manager for the radio station. And I was delighted when she was selected to be the general manager as I retired. Well, enough of that. It's a delight to talk about WUSF and our opportunity, yours and mine, to support its continued progress and health. You know, this thing here has a long list of really major donors, and you are all among it. And you have made such a difference, and will continue to make such a difference as the stations continue to function and to grow and to continue to serve the communities that they serve. I think it's also particularly interesting to see the number of people, not a large number yet, but perhaps some of you will think about that have become legacy members. That's to say, making planned gifts through their what's the word I want? Wills, of course. That's what I say to Joanne. What's the word I want? And she usually supplies it. Anyway, I think one of the things that I also want to do is to talk just a minute about some of the many friends that I've had here. You've already heard Bob Seymour. What a guy. He can do everything. He can do the news. He can do the classical music. And of course, he does jazz marvelously. And do you know, he is known throughout the country as a major person in the jazz field. And so it's really a pleasure to have him continue to do what he does for our public radio station. And of course, you've heard Russ Grant on the regular station, particularly with SMR. Russ has been around a long time, and you know, he started out as a student back in the very early 80s, and just stayed on. And he's done a terrific job as the head of the classical music operation. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a person from TV. After all, we've talked a lot about radio, and this, in a sense, is a celebration of the 50 years of the radio station. But I have to mention Susan Geiger. Most of you perhaps know Susan. Susan came to us, and she was an assistant to Bill Buxton, who was a past TV station manager. And Bill kind of helped her to understand some of the issues about a station that was, quote, second in the market. And with her assistance, we grew from a very modest audience of about, 285 or 90,000 people listening or watching TV, to a station now that has close to 700,000 in any given week that watch the station. And the principle is that you design a second station to be an alternative, so that the people in the audience who are looking for public television have two choices, not just one. And that makes things really work very well. WUSF first reported to me as when I was an associate vice president for academic affairs. The general manager reported to me, and I had a number of other things that were responsible to me. And when he retired, there was a notion that, well, maybe we could do without a general manager for a while, so why don't you take over the general managership as an additional duty? Anyway, I did that. Did that for about 5 years. And then the president at the time decided he wanted to move broadcasting over to public affairs vice presidency. And he said to me, if you'd like to go on as full-time general manager, you could do that. And I said, I'd really like to do that because I really liked public broadcasting. And so that's what I did. In 1990, I became full-time general manager. And I had a wonderful time until I retired in 2002. And it's just been terrific from my perspective in my retirement to watch this thing just continue to grow and develop and becomes increasingly so much a part of this community. Well, why do I mention all this? It's because WUSF Media and its future will be even more special if each of us take the step to make a planned gift to WUSF. And those of you that have not yet thought about that or considered it, I ask you very, very cogently to do that. Joanne and I have done that and have established such a gift in our will. And we think that that's one of the ways in which, in the long term, these stations will continue to prosper, because they'll have a base of funding that can't be taken away. And so I would truly encourage each of you, if you have the capacity and the willingness, to make a planned gift to WUSF. And if you'll do that, I know that support for WS for the foreseeable future and beyond will be secure. Thank you very much.